except for the people who maintain that blockchain register. Okay, and even they cannot see who has done what transaction. They can see the transaction, but they can't identify the person. And this is the crux of the problem, because when you can't identify the problem, the kind of possibilities that arise we'll see again in some subsequent slides. But this is the key issue which is actually creating all the havoc, that there is no regulatory body, there is no centralized control over that ledger. People, anybody can buy bitcoins, anybody can sell bitcoins. Who bought from whom, identity wise it is not known. Yes, you can say there is somebody who holds a private key with that string of numbers. That is how you start, and against that you may have some BTC in credit, and you may transfer from that BTC to somebody else, right? Now instead of BTC there are many other cryptocurrencies. In India itself, I see there is a list of more than 40 cryptocurrencies getting quoted on a day-to-day basis. We'll again see some of those names. Okay, now Satoshi then created the first software program to begin mining. Okay, this is where mining started. So for that, that is the process of creating. He made the system like that you have to mine, and the people who mine successfully get bitcoins. Okay, so in January 2009, Satoshi mined himself the first set of bitcoins, or the first Bitcoin. Okay, and that block, because it was the first block that he created, is what is called the Genesis block. And every blockchain, the first block is the Genesis block. That was the, so January 2009 was the month in which the first blockchain was created, or the blockchain of Bitcoin was created by Satoshi Nakamoto. Okay. Soon thereafter, there were weaknesses in the blockchain software that he created at that time. So he again came out with a better version, and then other developers also started mining bitcoins. As people came to know, they also started developing bitcoins. Look at the funny things that happened around that time. So we are talking of 2009. So by 2010, many people had bitcoins. Okay, most of them computer nerds. So on May 21, 2010, Bitcoin was first used by a person called Laszlo to purchase a pizza worth $25. For how much? 10,000 bitcoins. Now your mind will shake when you see today Bitcoin is upward of 50,000 US dollars, one Bitcoin. Okay, so just imagine if this pizza parlor guy had kept it as a souvenir, what it would be worth to him today. But that is just on the lighter side, but this is a fact, right? So he bought the first, because that time Bitcoin was not known to anybody, and people did not believe that much in it except for computer nerds. And computer nerds also did it just out of fun, for them they were already having enough income. So this $25 worth pizza paying 10,000 bitcoins, he said, anyway, bitcoins, I have just done some work on the computer and got these bitcoins, so it doesn't matter. He bought a pizza of 25, or maybe more than one pizza, for $25, and by exchanging 10,000 bitcoins. That means that was the first commercial transaction where bitcoins were used to purchase some goods. Okay.
But sir, here,
Yeah.
when you say he has given 10,000 Bitcoin, is
Yes.
it a hard physical form or is it some?
So we'll okay, fine. You can ask questions in between so that I can keep on clarifying. Now, look at, we have two students who have purchased bitcoins, right? So they have purchased bitcoins using some application which may be on their mobile, or which may be like Gmail on the web, or which might be an application that can be loaded in your desktop. Okay, and there may be one or two more methods like a hardware wallet itself. But the main point is, normally they use a software, like to do UPI transactions. You have a software, no?
Right,
Right. You have the BHIM, the Beam software,
right.
using which you do transfer of money from your bank account to somebody else's account. The
Okay,
only difference is, in Beam, your money is in the bank. Beam is provided details about the bank. Bank also sends you OTP, or Beam itself has one more level that you have to cross before money gets transferred.
correct.
Okay. Now, in Bitcoin, the only difference is, instead of the bank, you have this blockchain, you have this ledger. Okay, so this person who bought the pizza, he was having that many bitcoins in the Bitcoin ledger. And there was this other pizza fellow who also may be on the blockchain, who may have that kind of software. So this person Laszlo has transferred 10,000 bitcoins to the account of the pizza parlor owner. Is that
Okay.
clear now?
So
Are you able
everything
to
is
get the
electronic.
picture?
Everything is electronic.
Everything is electronic, nothing is physical. The physical part is only the pizza.
Right.
Okay, now these are some very important questions, because where is the value? So the value is that the parlor fellow believes that what I have in my app will someday help me to buy something else, or at that time even getting dollars was difficult. Okay, that at that time for him to get dollars was nearly impossible. But there were lots of other fans of bitcoins who would be willing to exchange some goods. It was almost like a barter system.
Right.
So there is some clarity now. Okay, fine. Now, to overcome these kind of problems only, in July 2010, there was a company called Mount Gox. Okay, and this was actually based in Tokyo. It's a small suburb called Shibuya, where somebody set up a exchange. Okay, so it is just like a stock exchange. You use the stock exchange to buy or sell your shares, correct? So Mount Gox set up a exchange and said, okay, look, we are creating another, we are going to use this ledger, and you can do your exchange of Bitcoin from here. Okay, and slowly maybe they even started, giving cash to some people. That is, again, it's because of investment made by Gox would have thought that, okay, let me collect bitcoins, I will give my cash.
Right.
So that is where the exchange started. So Mount Gox could give you some yen or dollar, or actually it spread to other countries also. Okay, so we'll see that a little down the line. But in essence, you first had this Bitcoin. This was the first exchange. So our two students who have the Bitcoins or any other crypto, correct, they have to use some exchange, and their app will be actually created by that exchange, because through that app you can get access to the exchange, and it is on the exchange where you can buy or sell the crypto. I'm now talking only crypto, because it could be Bitcoin, it could be something else also. There are other cryptocurrencies, and because Bitcoin is extremely costly, most of the people will be using other cryptos. Okay, so but this is where it all started. The first exchange came up in July 2010. This history is worth remembering for some time till everything stabilizes. Then Bitcoin became equal to $1. That means one Bitcoin it became equal to $1 in February 2011. Okay, look at May 21, right? 2010, and in February 2011, in less than a year, right? If you do this conversion, you can find out that the value of Bitcoin in dollars was extremely low, but it became $1. So if you look at it that way, it's like he paid $10,000 for what was worth $25, correct? Because in February 2011, one Bitcoin was having parity with US dollar, which means one Bitcoin was equal to $1. And this rapid rise was primarily a result of increased media attention. This is another very important point today. And if you again recall, the first thing the government has done after the last meeting of concerned people along with the prime minister is asking all Bitcoin operators in India not to advertise their products,
Ah,
or to advertise it only with whatever is factually provable. They cannot advertise something which they cannot prove. That is the condition that has now been put, and a lot of crypto ads would have come down, though there are so many small players who just take the risk and say jo hoga dekha jayega, we are going to kind of promote, because they'll get business, and they stand to gain. The trader never loses in any business. Whoever is doing trading, is the probability that he will lose money is very very low. Okay, he is normally buying from somebody and quickly selling it off to somebody else at a margin. That is what happens. So these players in India, most of them are like traders. Okay, so in 2013 and into 2014, Mount Gox was handling over 70%. So by that time other exchanges also came up. Okay, but Mount Gox was one of the biggest you know uh, uh, volume, handling the biggest volume of transactions, so much so that 70% of all Bitcoin transactions worldwide were happening on their exchange. And then after many, this is, we are talking of 2014, 7 years back. Okay, after many ups and downs for a few years, and if you, I'll show you somewhere the graph, even that is recent, you might have heard that Elon Musk made certain kind of statements, and with each statement that he made, the fluctuation in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies was so much that people either became millionaires or people became paupers. But somebody won and somebody lost, just because Elon Musk made some statements. Okay, now that is what I mean by ups and downs. That means when media covered it in one way, the price would shoot up. When media covered it in through proof, brought them in poor light, then the price of the crypto came down. So that's why there are many ups and downs, many, and the changes were quite substantial. There was a resurgence in price and trading volume in June 2019 when the price surpassed $10,000. What are we are talking of? June 2019. That is 2.5 years back, right? Bitcoin was still at 10,000. Okay, and by in June it was 10,000. In 2019 December, it again became 7,112. Okay, so that is almost like a 30% fall. So you can see how it was going up and down. In fact, some of the rise and falls were much more than that 30% also. But that is the kind of tumultuous history cryptocurrencies had. And I will just add that most of this was because the people behind Bitcoin, right, they were not governed by anybody. They were completely in charge of it themselves. It was all media hype, and it was some kind of interest shown by some kind of entrepreneurs, or people who thought that they can make quick money, and some of them actually made quick money. So there wasn't too much of a basis, okay, except the fact, and the very big fact was, nobody can identify who bought Bitcoin or who sold Bitcoin. So who was the buyer, who was the seller, who transferred how much to whom? These facts were not available or were not possible, and that made it attractive for a lot of people. So we'll see that down the line. This is the second part of it. So it was not until 2020. So you know what happened in March 2020? You had the pandemic, and because of the pandemic, a lot of economies were shaken up, and that is the time when Bitcoin burst into activity again, because Bitcoin is not affected by inflation. Okay, Bitcoin is not affected by inflation because this currency is not controlled by any country. Okay, and therefore it started the year 2020 at 7,200. So that was the price we saw no in December or something. In the previous slide, if you see, this was, yeah, December 2019, it was 7,000 rupees, right? So in, say, January 2020, it was 7,200 rupees. Now the pandemic panic and fears about the global economy accelerated Bitcoin's rise. Okay, in on November 23rd, 2020, Bitcoin was trading at 18,000. That means more than 100% appreciation from January to November. So in less than a year, it was double. Okay. Of course, this is happening today even in our shares, which are listed and legal, right? So if you really want to make money, you can make there too. But this is what happened in Bitcoin. Now, again, the price reached an all-time high in 2021 as values exceeded at on one particular date. It was over 65,000 US dollars, and they say that it was in February 2021. So these values, and it exceeded 65,000 in February 21, April 21, November 21. Now the first two were due to events involving Tesla. So this is the consequence of Elon Musk's statement. And of course, that time he was, I think, probably talking of BTC, as well as he made some investments in Coinbase, respectively. I mean, Coinbase actually came out with an ICO, initial coin offering, just like IPO. So that was one of the events when crypto went up considerably. Coinbase itself is a different story. There is, you can read articles on that. They came out with an ICO, and somewhere, I think last time I mentioned that afterwards the US securities what do you call group, or the agency, They fined Coinbase and they had to pay heavy damages and penalty. Okay. But a lot of change also happened because of Tesla's announcement that it had acquired 1.5 billion US dollars worth of digital coin, as well as IPO of the actually subscribed to IPO, or it should have been ICO of the US's biggest crypto exchange, Coinbase. Right? All of this, again made it go all the way above, or just it was a little above 65,000 US dollars. Now, unlike fiat currency, which is like US dollar is a fiat currency. Our rupee is a fiat currency. Fiat currency is nothing but the currency that we are currently using, and it is controlled by the government. That's why it is called fiat currency. Right? Where Federal Reserve or RBI can simply decide to print more banknotes. That's what happens. It leads to inflation. Okay, they print more banknotes. That's what the US has been doing until recently to overcome the problems of pandemic. In Bitcoin, the supply is finite. In Bitcoin, the supply is finite. You cannot print beyond a point because that limit has been set by Satoshi Nakamoto in the Bitcoin's ledger, in the software of Bitcoin. So BTC is supposed to stop at 21 million Bitcoins. After that, you won't be able to mine more Bitcoins. So that is one of the reasons why its price is fluctuating and is going up. Okay, and this is embedded in its design, which is roughly 89, of which they are saying today 89% of this has already been mined by April 2021. 80 today, it could be even 90%. 90% of this is already mined, but still there is a long way to go. And it is believed that Bitcoin will run out by 2040. So, and there are reasons for this, which we'll be seeing shortly. Okay, so Bitcoin mining may almost stop by 2040. That's the estimated year by which that 21 million would have already got mined, right? And one word which you should remember is called altcoin, which you will come across again in many places, because every other crypto except Bitcoin is the original one, right? It started with Bitcoin. So every other crypto is called an altcoin, whichever you are holding. If it is not BTC, Bitcoin is represented by BTC on all exchanges. Okay, so if it is not Bitcoin, whatever you have is an altcoin. It is an alternative to Bitcoin. Okay, so and Namecoin is the very first altcoin, and this was created in 2011. Okay, so this is about mining. And just a very interesting fact is that the mining operation, because actually the number of Bitcoins that a miner gets is half every 4 years, is halved every 4 years. That means what started in 2009 with Satoshi, right? At that time, I think it was 50 Bitcoins you will get for one successful block added. But after that, every 4 years, it has been going down to half, and we'll see a table which shows what it is today. Okay. Now, because of all this, the mining is becoming more and more difficult and power hungry, because to mine Bitcoins, you need powerful computers, and computers will consume energy. So because of this, a Bitcoin a Bitcoin mining transaction could equal the energy consumption of a small country in 2021. So today, whatever kind of mining happens, the amount of energy that is used up, and mind you, there will be multiple miners doing trying to mine the same block for the same set of transactions. That's why again the power consumption goes up considerably, and it is right now, they say, as high as the power consumption of a small country. But anyway, that is just a tidbit for information. So I think by now we are all familiar. So this is just a definition that a cryptocurrency is a digital or virtual currency that is secured by cryptography, because it uses that PKI. So that is this concept of public and private key, right? That's where this cryptography word is related. And this is what makes it nearly impossible to duplicate or double spend. So we'll see what is this double spend. It's just a concept which you should be aware of. There is a slide on that, so we'll see that. Now, cryptocurrency is maintained on a decentralized ledger. So it is a decentralized digital money, and it uses the blockchain technology, with which today in many places you can buy goods and services. But again, the biggest problem is for a large number of years. So today we are in 2021, but maybe even today, the case of Sri Krishna Ramesh is partly because he used it to buy drugs. Okay, and he was selling those drugs, and those drugs are available in what we call the dark web. Okay, because nobody wants to identify themselves. Whoever is selling drugs, if they identify themselves, they're going to be in trouble because with the respective government of that country. And therefore they don't identify themselves, and that is where the fear of cryptocurrency is there in the minds of a lot of well-meaning people and governments. Because if you can't identify the person, and now look at this scenario where let's say a person is good at mining, right? He has mined, he gets bitcoins. Now in countries like US, you can still exchange it for dollars because there are buyers for those bitcoins. So you transfer bitcoin from your wallet to that person's wallet. In the dark web, you can directly buy drugs or many other things which are normally prohibited in normal markets. You can buy that by just exchanging bitcoins with them, and they will deliver this to your home. So you can get money or you can buy this. This is now a very popular channel for financing terrorist operations, because you see, the anonymity of the people transferring these funds is completely maintained, because that is the way the whole system is designed. And this is another very important and primary reason for governments to be wary about using uh, available cryptocurrency as they are. Because in the available cryptocurrency system as it works today, you can't identify the buyer or the seller, and this has become a conduit for terrorists to fund their operations. Because uh, those who are supportive of their activities, they can easily donate money, and that money will go through bitcoins until a point where it is easy for them to convert it into currency. And sometimes if they need weapons from the dark web or something, maybe they don't even have to convert it. This is one of the bigger problems besides drugs. So terror finance is one of the biggest problems which has to be brought under control and monitoring. And drugs, these are all businesses which no government would like them to prosper. That is the reason why cryptocurrency is not gaining ground as fast as it should have. Okay, but mind you, blockchain is gaining ground very fast, rapidly. Just if you go and look at your COVID certificate, see, many of you would have seen COVID certificate. No, today whenever you go, you have to show proof that you got both the vaccinations done, right? I think I don't recall clearly, but either it is the government issued by the Maharashtra, there is a agency which issues this certificate, or maybe it is the government of India. But one of those certificates actually is using blockchain technology. It is mentioned there in that certificate that you are this is the certificate on our blockchain of that agency. It is some health rehabilitation something, that is the full form. I think it was the Maharashtra state certificate, or maybe it is the certificate. I can even confirm that to you, because I just took out one certificate for myself. If you want to travel abroad, right, I'll come back to that. I'll show you that in the end if possible, and we'll be able to prove that. So certificates and many. So Maersk, the container company, who deal in movement of goods using containers, they use blockchain. Many pharmaceutical companies are using blockchain. As I said, bank consortiums are using blockchain. Okay, so blockchain is not the culprit. The culprit is cryptocurrency, and it is because of anonymity of the buyer and seller. These are the areas which you need to be observing before you actually jump big time into cryptocurrency. Okay, and these fluctuations will continue because of these very reasons. So if you're smart, maybe you can make some money, but be sure that you are on the right side of the law, so that it doesn't create a future problem which you never thought of. Okay, so that is cryptocurrency. And so again we come back to mining. So sir, this let me see if I can help you understand mining better here again. So mining refers to the process of digitally adding the transaction records to a blockchain. Now, one thing which again I will emphasize is, one block in the blockchain is not just for one person's one single transaction. it will be for a group of transactions. So in all the blockchains, what they do is they wait for a certain number of transactions to get accumulated, because each block has a size. Earlier it used to be 8 MB or 1 MB, and now it is 8 MB, right? So you can have 8 times the amount of time, or maybe even more. It depends on the kind of software and the way in which it is coded and the size that finally results from each transaction. It will even depend on the transaction itself, whether the transaction has photos, whether the transaction has fingerprints, whether the transaction has any video. So if a blockchain is being used to sell songs, then even the whole song can be, something about the song itself can be in the blockchain. Okay, but those things are details you don't need to worry about. The main point is one block can have multiple transactions, and they run into thousands. They are not even tens or hundreds, they run into thousands. Okay, so first, that many, let's say you need 4,000 transactions before you make a block. So first, transactions will be accumulated. The moment it reaches 4,000, then they are circulated to the nodes. Nodes are operated by miners. Okay, and miners will now get information. Okay, these transactions you have to convert into a block, and they actually start the process of mining. So mining actually involves solving a mathematical problem, but that will become clear when I think when we saw that last time, I showed you the graphic of a block. The block will have address of the previous block. That means it is again a hash. It is an alphanumeric string. Okay, and the block will have its data. Data is pertaining to its transactions, and the block will have its own identity, which is again another hash, which is again another alphanumeric screen. So these three components are most important: hash of the previous block, the data of the block, and hash of this particular block itself, which is its identity. Okay, so for a miner to be successful, right, it has to take these transactions, right? It has to take this hash of the previous block. It will first make one hash. Okay, and as I said, it is given a target hash. So I think I explained this the last time. Let me see, it is here. Okay, so this is the how is a Bitcoin mine. So all right, so let me read from here. Actually, that hash has to be again hashed with what is called as a nonce. This I explained when we were doing blockchain. That is there in the presentation there. But to mine a Bitcoin, what is this? That you need a powerful computer, membership of the Bitcoin, that ledger on which you are going to do the mining, and access to, means you should be authorized to do the mining also, and the software that is required to do. So then you qualify as a full node. And when new transactions are to be added to the Bitcoin ledger, they are collected in predetermined lots. That means the total number of transactions has to reach a certain value, put into a new block with the hash of the previous block, right? And these two things are again put through the hash function, and you generate a new hash. Okay, so that data about transactions is given to all the nodes. All the nodes, because they can access the blockchain, they can see which is the last node, and they can see which is the hash of that node. So that they automatically have all the transactions, copies are sent to all the miners, and now with that they start the process of mining. And after this is propagated, this is also, they are also sent what is called as a target hash. Okay, and we'll soon be seeing exactly what this hash looks like, though it's just an alphanumeric string, but they are given this target hash. And so first hash, they take the hash of the previous block and the transactions. So using these two things, passing it through a hash function, you get the first hash. This hash you have to combine with a guessed number. You guess a number, and that number is called a nonce. Number used only once. That's why it is called a nonce, right? So the resulting hash from the hash of the previous block plus the transactions, you get a hash. This hash and the nonce are again put through a hash function, and you get a new hash. This hash should be very close to the target hash. Ideally, it should be the target hash. You won't get it the first time. So you have to either vary or increase or decrease the nonce, the value of the nonce. Using that, you slowly reach this target hash. And whoever comes closest to it first, right, that is again circulated to the all the people on the blockchain. And if they agree to that, then you become one of the successful miners. Okay, so this is propagated to all with a target hash. And To get the successful hash, you have to achieve this target hash for converting the new block into a valid block. Now, each miner gets down to the task of obtaining this target hash, and in many cases, they allow, even if you are slightly lower than the target hash also, your block will be added and you will be called the successful miner, right? By hashing the fingerprint of the block and the nonce. Okay, so the fingerprint of the block is the hash of the previous block hash plus the transaction. When you put that through a hashing function, you get one hash, that is the fingerprint of the block, and this is again hashed with the nonce, and you get one more hash, and that has to be compared always with the target. So that is the iterative process. You go on changing this value of the nonce till your final hash comes close to this. Okay, the nonce is the elusive number which needs to be found using an iterative approach. So is this clear? Because this concept should be very clearly understood by you if you want to understand mining. But sir, have you got this clear now? Sir, are you
Yeah,
there?
yeah. I
Yeah,
got it clear now.
you got it clear, right?
So
So,
basically, it is a hash plus transaction plus the lance.
so there is a hash function. So first there is hash of the previous block and the transaction. This entire data, right, is fed to the hash function. You get hash one. Let us say that is hash one. This is now the hash of the new block.
Okay.
Okay. Now this hash has to, now you have to guess a number, that is the nonce, and you go on hashing this. It is a trial and error procedure. That is why it is called an iterative approach. So
Oh,
you guess something like 10,000, and then you hash it with the hash of the new block, and that value should be equal to this target value, and you go on changing the value of nonce till you reach the target hash or come extremely close to that. And this process is depicted here because these are the miners. They are all having their own nodes. Okay, and they do this entire operation, and this is the hash labels. Okay, so they do this entire operation, and here it is just shown that the second miner, he has been able to get this hash right, which may be matching with the target hash, and therefore this is successful. Okay, all others are not successful, but you see the power is consumed by all of these people, and
ah,
because this is a time consuming and difficult operation, that is what makes it secure. So hackers also cannot do anything because there are lots of people doing this work, and then these blocks are arranged chronologically, and it is linked to the previous block. That's why it is called a blockchain, because the
ah,
hash of this block is also there in this block.
correct.
Okay, or the new block. So when you change anything here, the fingerprint of that block itself will change,
Ah,
because you will change something in the transaction. No, the hackers or people with malified intention may want to change something in the transaction. So if I have transferred two bitcoins to somebody, they will try to go and, after the transfer has happened, they will try to go back and restore the balance of that person to two bitcoins.
yeah.
Okay, then that is a malified transaction. But when you do that, the hash of this block will change. Right? If the hash changes, right, then it cannot remain connected with the next block,
Ah,
because the next block had the hash of this when it was right. That is what makes it what is called immutable, and that is also one of the reasons why it is considered very secure. Besides this entire process itself, this process is time consuming, because if you change something and if the hash changes, that is where you have this concept of 51% hacking, what do you call, attack. What happens is, since these operate on consensus, so when 51% of the entire group of nodes agree that this transaction is correct, it has been correctly done and the value is correct, all that, then only this new block gets added to this blockchain. Okay, but assume a situation where hackers have got control of more than 50% of these miner machines, or 50% of these mining machines belong to the hacker only. Now you have a problem, right? But to reach that kind of a state, that person has to be a multi-billionaire, and it's still not so easy. That's why so far, nowadays you don't hear of blockchain getting hacked. What you hear hacking is mostly the wallets of, we have our two students who have some bitcoin, they have wallets. The wallets can be hacked, and if I hack some wallets, I can go and see what is the money in that, and I can just transfer it to my wallet. That is what is really happening today in hacking of cryptocurrency. It's not the blockchain that is the problem. That is what I want you to understand. Is that clear?
Yeah.
The hacking is not changing anything in the blockchain. It is changing something in the wallets which have access to the blockchain. And essentially what they do is the money in the wallet itself is fraudulently or unknowingly unknown to the owner of the wallet. Suddenly you will get up and find, okay, my bitcoins are vanished, or they have reduced by so much, but I have not transferred to anybody.
Right.
Correct. And since you once you do the transfer, it cannot be rolled back.
Oh,
Okay, and then there is anonymity. So you may know where it is transferred, but who is this person, you don't know, and there is no way to roll back this transaction, because this is a blockchain and everything is linked. You cannot roll back a transaction. That's another feature of this blockchain. Okay, so what is it that the hash looks like? So when mining is starting, this is the target hash that is given to all the miners. It is, as I said, nothing but a string of alpha numerals. Okay, now this person, he has come very close, but this is 3, right? So if you compare these two, the only difference is this number is 5, and sorry, here it is 0 and here it is 3. Okay, so that is different. Then disqualified, again here it is 0 and this is D. Okay, everything else is the same. This is considered viable because this is 0 and this is 4. Again, compared to 5, this is the closest from all the minors. This is the closest. Now it's also up to the consensus mechanism to decide whether they'll allow this or wait still for this to become exactly 5. That is up to the consensus mechanism of the blockchain. But you don't worry about that. You assume that they will see that this number comes to 5 and then only declare this as a success. But in many blockchains until now, even if it is very close, and this there are mathematical ways to understand how close it is to this particular target. Okay, they will have, let's say there is a small percentage given that plus or minus 1%, and if this value and this value is within that plus or minus 1%, it will allow. That depends on the consensus mechanism. So if you see the previous PPT, in that there are names of different consensus mechanisms. Okay, but you don't have to go into that level of detail technically. You just understand this is what happens in mining. So a target hash is given to the miners. They do something, create the hash. They have to compare it with the target, and they should be extremely close or match the target. For simplicity, just assume they have to match the target. If they match the target, they are success. They have successfully mined a block. So let's see what happens when you have successfully mined a block. Okay. So how many bitcoins can be mined? As I told you there, it comes to some figure that was 21 million, right? That is the upper limit. Okay. Now this is kept simply because it is 21 million, and unlike banks, you can't go on just producing bitcoins. The value of Bitcoin will always keep increasing. Okay, unless the demand supply equation, when it changes, it will fall. So it has gone up and down. But let's say all mining is done and 21 million coins are in existence today. I think it is 18 point some million. I'll show you that also. Okay, when it is only a fixed number of bitcoins, now when people want more and more people want Bitcoin, that is the time when the price will go up. So if they say it is inflation proof. Okay, but we don't want to go into the economic side of all of this, but that's why they say it is what do you call inflation proof. This is the upper limit set by the person who started the Bitcoin ledger. Okay, so this is just some statistic. A mere decade from now, nearly 97%. So I said today I think it's about 90%, right? So a mere decade from now, nearly 97% of bitcoins are likely to have been mined. Okay, but the remaining 3% will come into existence during the next century. So I don't know. They are saying 2040, right? That was the limit given. But don't worry about that. Those are all just years by which it can happen. If some more powerful methods of mining come, maybe it can happen faster also. Or if the number of transactions keep growing very fast, it can happen before also. Okay, so the final Bitcoin is actually said to be or is estimated to be mined around, I don't know, here it says 2140. I'll have to check some figures because in that last slide it was showing 2040. I could be wrong. It could be one of these. So probably it is 2140 because then only you're a century later. Okay, the reason behind this is the slow mining process called halving. So we'll see what this is. See, we started with 50 BTC per block in 2008 2009 when the first block was mined. Whatever, I think in that history we saw, whether it was 2008 or 2009, this was actually 2009, so there is an error here. This should be made 2009. Okay, this one. So actually it was 50 BTC when it was launched, and actually the first Bitcoin was created in 2009. That time, for one successful block being added, you got 50 Bitcoins. So in 2012, okay, so this limit was set in 2008. That's why 2008, because he was still writing the code for the blockchain. But he set this limit like this. And in 2012, it became 25. Okay. Now at the start of 2016, it was 12.5. And since 2020, today we are in 2021, it is only 6.25 per Bitcoin. You are actually doing a lot more work. You are consuming a lot more power. There are a large number of miners compared to what was there in 2008, and still what you get is just 6.25 BTC per successful block added. And that is the reason why Bitcoin is price is going up and up, so this graphically is something like this. So 2008 9, it was here, I think it is shown 9, so it is 50 BTC. In 9 also it was 50 BTC, then it became 25 in 12, 12.5. So you see it is getting half. Okay, so today it is 6.25. It will remain so until the start of 2024, when it will become again half of this. That's the way the Bitcoin blockchain works. Okay, so I hope you have understood the technical aspects of how Bitcoin got created, who created it, what happens in its mining, and how many Bitcoins you can get if you become a miner. But you are unlikely to become a miner soon enough, but you could be buying Bitcoins, which already some of our friends have done. So there are different ways from where you can buy Bitcoin. So you can go to a cryptocurrency exchange, which is what most of our friends have done. Okay, you can even get from Bitcoin ATMs, which are there in some places, again set up by mostly by these people who operate the exchanges. And I'll show you a list of exchanges. I'll show you a list of names of different cryptos also. So they also sometimes can set up ATMs, where instead of taking fiat money or taking out dollars or rupees, you put that in, and it will ask you for your username, password to your wallet or something, and it will load that Bitcoin into your wallet. So these kind of things are what you use. You can also get voucher cards. So somebody told no that Flipkart send them a gift coupon, so you can get that. You need to download an app, I think, and then you put the details of that coupon, and automatically Bitcoins will get credited to your account. Is that what happened? One of you had that from Flipkart, no?
Yeah,
Correct. So who had it from Flipkart
I think Varun,
coupon?
Harshad.
Yes, sir, it was me.
So it was like this only, no? So you get a coupon, then you have to download
Yes,
some
sir.
program in your mobile, then you have to put the bit that voucher details, and your Bitcoins or whichever crypto it is will get credited to your account, right?
Yes, sir, exactly like that.
Fine. So I now everything is clear, and this is a real life experience, right? So good. So you can even buy it personally. So if two people have wallets and somebody has Bitcoins, you can pay that person in rupees, and he will transfer some Bitcoins from his wallet to your wallet. That is called a wallet to wallet transfer. So is this clear how you can get Bitcoins if you want and you still don't have, or you want to increase the number of Bitcoins you want? These are some of the ways in which you can do it. Now, this double spend problem is very simple once you understand it. See, when you have a 10 rupee note, okay, so if you buy something, then you will be handing over this note to let's say this is a case of buying a sandwich. So the issue of double spending is a problem that cash does not have. Why? When you buy a sandwich, right, and let's say it costs 10 rupees, so you will hand over this 10 rupee note to the maker of the sandwich, correct, to the sandwich wala. Now that same note is not with you to give to anybody else. Now in crypto, because it is a soft copy, because it is a virtual copy, right, you know that if you have a photo, you can make multiple copies of that photo, correct? Now, if you assume that virtual currency is like that photo, maybe you can make multiple copies and keep, and you send one to somebody and send the other one to somebody. That is what is called the double spend problem. Means the same Bitcoin, right? You cannot, or you should not be able to use it more than once. That is what is to prevent the double spend problem. If you can do it, then you are having a double spend problem. And that was one of the points of contention in the creation of Bitcoin, and that they have done through this blockchain based approach. Okay, so the double spend problem is prevented in blockchain cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin by using a consensus mechanism. So this is where, as I said, no, lot of checking is done before they are validated. So they will. It's like if I am transferring, Bitcoin from my account, which has 2 Bitcoins, I'm transferring one to Murthy sir, 1 Bitcoin. I should be left with one, right? So that entire thing is checked. When validation happens, this is checked, and they'll make sure that I had two. So when it is transferred here, again I should be left with one. So when the operation is carried out, when the transaction is ready for adding to the block, all these things get carried out, and that is what is happening in both validation, and sometimes maybe it could be happening in consensus, because before consensus also they will go and check, okay, is this happened, right? That is how you prevent the double spend problem. I've just mentioned this because somewhere you'll read about it, so you should know what is double spend. You should not be able to spend or use the same Bitcoin more than once. That means if you're giving to somebody, it should be out of your control. That is what. If you are able to do that, then you have avoided the double spend problem. But this was one of the problems that was envisaged in the design of the Bitcoin. Now, as I said, to begin Bitcoin, if you want to be a miner, this is what you need. You need powerful computing machines. Today, it is not one or two machines, it is running into 50, 100 machines. And many of these people, they go as far as to go and set up these rigs in something like Iceland. Iceland has many rigs. You know why? Because the temperature is very low. So the power that is consumed by these machines also is considerably lower than operating them in a country like India. Okay, so they go as far as that, and you have now not machines, you have what we call rigs, where it is a data center with hundreds of machines doing the just trying to mine one block. Okay, so you need low cost power supply, you need the mining software, and you need the mining pool membership. So these are some requirements if you want to be a miner. Then you go to this uh, exchanges. So in India, I'm focusing in India itself. All these are exchanges through which you can do crypto operations. So exchanges are just like stock market. You can buy and sell, means you can transfer, or you can buy and transfer cryptos using this exchange. Okay. Now you can separately, you can say, I can tell Murthy sir that, sir, I can transfer one BTC to you, but you have to give me this much in rupees. So the rupee part will come outside. That's what happens with even Terror Finance. Okay. So of course, sometimes Murthy sir can give me one tape recorder or one television simply because I transferred one BTC. So there is no physical currency involved. That is like a barter. That can also happen, right? Or I'm simply giving it as a gift. So one area which all of you can keep in mind, especially my friends who have got wallets, just check out, sometimes we call leverage. So sometimes the price of Bitcoin in India might be lower or higher than the price of Bitcoin in some other country, let's say Canada, or let's say US, or let's say Japan. If you happen to have friends there, right, and if the difference is substantial, and it could easily be of the order of 10,000 or more in Bitcoin. Okay, so suppose the Bitcoin converted to dollar, right, and Bitcoin converted to rupee, there is a difference of 10,000 rupees, right, because you will also do a conversion from dollar to rupees, and you can compare. It will happen that sometimes, if you like for example, you have a friend in Japan, you can send that Bitcoin to your friend in Japan and tell him you convert it to yen. Okay, he will get some amount of yen, and afterwards he will transfer from yen to rupees in your bank account. Got this picture?
Yeah.
You have a Bitcoin, you transfer it to your friend in Japan. There he is able to convert it into yen, or let's say he wants to buy a house, and those people are taking money in crypto also. He can buy a house, but essentially he is able to get it in yen. Okay, so this yen, now yen is a fiat currency. He can transfer the yen through a bank straight away to you in rupees. You got the picture? So if your conversion rates are such that there you are getting more yen for that same amount, here if you were to buy yen you would have got something less. That is called leverage, and that is something which people do even in the stock market. Okay, so like between the BSE and NSE also there are two exchanges we have. So if BSE and NSE price difference is large, if it is quoting more on BSE, then I will sell, I may buy from NSE and sell on BSE.
Ah,
People do these kind of, this is called taking advantage, it's called leveraging. You are just making use of the difference. So this is going to happen in crypto also. So I'm just giving it to you as a tip. If you want to do and you have friends abroad who also have wallets, then the first thing you should check is which currency do you have. Can you transfer this currency from India to your friend in Japan, or your friend in Canada, or your friend in US? Then you have a new way of doing some trades. Okay, so these are some of the popular exchanges in India. These are some of the international crypto exchanges. Why I brought this table is for you to understand this thing called pairings. So pairings is for every exchange, what you can convert it into is what is called pairing. So on Binance, it has got tie up with some more than 1,000 plus different other fiat currencies. So you can transfer Bitcoin to different types of this 1,000 may include other cryptos also. Okay, so Bitcoin to say Ethereum or something. So this pairing just indicate if you have one currency, which are the other currencies into which you can transfer them. That is indicated here, and this varies from exchange to exchange. So this is also another aspect of exchanges. Okay, so if you look at in US, okay, so you will see something like this: the top 4 brokers. And I mean, what happens when you want to open an account in an exchange? In US, they are asking $100 minimum to be in your account. Okay, and this particular broker, our trade, they offer you 50 pairings. Okay, similarly you have other brokers. So in most of the cases you have to start with a minimum of $100. So I think something like this might happen in must be happening in India also. Okay, but since we are just starting off and they want to attract more and more people, they might keep this as zero also. Okay, you can do this even in your share stock market trading accounts. Yesterday's listing was Paytm, if you recall, right? Paytm listed at 26% discount.
right.
I mean, it went down to 26%, closed at around 19 point something discount yesterday. Okay, but if you have ICICI Direct and some other broker, they were saying they will not charge you any fees for buying or selling Paytm shares for that particular day. Similarly, to attract you, the exchanges in India will say, no, you don't need to maintain any minimum balance. Just give us this much money and we'll give you this much crypto. Correct? But this is the way it is operating in US today. All right, and this is just a graph about what happened when Elon Musk, did all these tweets. One is if you recall, he himself invested in different cryptos. That is one. Second, he even made this statement that you can buy Tesla using cryptos. And afterwards, after some months, he went back on that statement. He said, no, 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 we can't accept cryptos. So with all that, you get these kind of fluctuations. And if you are able to make money here, you might be able to make money here as well. But this is just for your information. So then you come to that cryptocurrency wallet, which I think I have already explained, right? So cryptocurrency wallet is nothing but a software, but it could also be a physical device. Okay, it could be a physical device, which makes it even more safer. When it is a software and your device is connected to the internet, you are vulnerable to hacking. That's what you need to understand. Okay, so when a person or company acquires cryptocurrency such as bitcoins, the owner can store it in a cryptocurrency wallet, and from there you can make transaction. That is the use of this wallet. Wallet is nothing but a software. The software can reside on your mobile, it can reside on your desktop, it can be even a web based. Okay, directly you will be going to that exchange itself, but you have your username and password. That's what we do in ICICI or any trading platform. The shares access is through the trading platform of your broker. Okay, now as the types of wallets, as I said, app based. App means based in your mobile, or it can be on your desktop, it can be even a pen drive, it can be even a hardware device in which everything else is there. You connect it to your laptop when you want to do the transfer only. Otherwise you just disconnect and keep. That makes it even more safer, right? Web based is like Gmail. Okay, or like as I said, Motilal Oswal or HDFC or ICICI trading platform, that is web based. Okay, so now coming to the countries, so far, as I said, none of the countries have kind of come to any kind of conclusion that we want to use crypto, we want to promote the use of crypto. Only El Salvador did this. Simply, why El Salvador did this? They have billions of US dollars coming to El Salvador from their citizens who are settled mostly in and around US and some other countries. Now, banks charge a heavy commission when you transfer from one country to another. That you might have also seen that, sir. If you are transferring money to your children in the US, or they are transferring from US to you, and if you come through the normal banking channel, you might be paying almost 1 rupee. That means if the price today is 74 rupees, you might be paying 75 rupees to send the money to your children in the US. If they send what is 74, you will get only 73. Okay, you understood this point? This is the commission charged by the bank. Now El Salvador is a poor country, okay, but they have a lot of citizens staying abroad, and billions of dollars are coming. Just like even in our case, until recently, a lot of money was coming from the Middle East. Even today, a lot of money is coming from other countries too, right? So the commission itself was running into quite a few $1 million. The commission charged by the bank to get this money also to its citizens, they have adopted Bitcoin. That is the basis. They have said why they adopted Bitcoin, because in Bitcoin no commission is charged by anybody. Okay, if somebody sends 5 Bitcoins, and then you will get 5 Bitcoins in El Salvador from whichever country they send. And since Bitcoin is now allowed for buying and selling of goods in El Salvador, the citizens get the benefit of that, saving that commission. And that is the reason they have allowed. US and India, they are all looking at, how to make it a little bit more controlled. And essentially they want to know who is doing these transactions, and this money should not get channeled for wrong purposes. That is what is happening. Okay, so prominent businesses like Dish Network in US, Microsoft, Subway, they all welcome payment in Bitcoin. That's what is stated. So I have not checked this, but maybe if Microsoft is also accepting, Subway is accepting, so there are ways to use that money. You get it? Though it is not yet legalized, there are ways to use that money. That's the best part of it. So in our government, cryptocurrency bill is coming up in the upcoming winter session, which is going to be held between November 29 and December 13. That's why they are saying in early 2022, some law will be passed, and you might have a clearer picture as to what is the future of cryptocurrency in India. As I said, RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das has said that the central bank has serious concerns as far deeper issues are involved in cryptocurrencies. And I think right now the case which I talked about, what is being investigated, it is partly because it was a lot of money. There were two parts to it. One is the person has hacked into the e-commerce platform of the ministry. Okay, e-procurement of the government of Karnataka. And from there he has siphoned off 11.6 lakhs. So that is one big problem. That is hacking. The second part is he used this money to buy Bitcoins. Okay, and these Bitcoins were used to buy drugs. Okay, and maybe some people who are selling drugs might be donating that money to finance terror operations. So that is how the linkage seems to be right now, and that is the reason for all this discussions that are happening on television and newspaper. Okay, so this is just to give you what is the INR values of very popular cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is one of them. Ethereum is one of them. Tether is one, which where you can directly even exchange it for dollars if you're in the US. But this is the price of each unit. So Bitcoin is being the oldest, is highly priced, 45. It's almost 46 lakhs. One Bitcoin today is 46 lakhs. Okay. Similarly, other currencies, there is a big shift when you move to ETH. It becomes 3.3 lakhs, and then it just go reducing kind of. Polkadot, I don't know, maybe it's from USSR or something. That is 3,200. But by and large, these others are there, and you can get this like stock prices. Just find out what is the exchange rate in INR, crypto exchange rate in INR, and you'll get this list. You'll get a bigger list than this. There are more than 1,000 different cryptos already being traded in India. Okay. Now, to buy a Bitcoin again, you can see these are the exchanges where you can buy a Bitcoin. Okay. So buy Bitcoin, all these are exchanges, and see that from exchange to exchange also price can vary. This is also one advantage you can take. Here it is 45.9, that is 46 lakhs. Here it is 42 lakhs. So if you have one Bitcoin, right, if you transfer from CoinSwitch to Binance, you still have one Bitcoin, and maybe you'll make 4 lakh rupees. That is what is the leverage available. Okay. But afterwards you can see it's like more or less similar, but in some cases it goes to even more. So here you have 46.9, that is here, see, local Bitcoins, it goes to 50.5 lakhs. But this is just to give you an idea. So these are the different cryptos. These are the different exchanges who deal in this crypto, and pairings will tell you. So you go and see the pairings, it will tell you which crypto you can get, which you can exchange on this exchange. That is the meaning. And this is the last slide, I think, that I have, which is just showing you today what is the price in US dollars for different cryptos. This is from the US market, but you can see here, this is the where, see, Bitcoin, the market cap is this much. This will be running into trillions of dollars, 33639, right? So you are at billion. So this is like 1 trillion, I suppose. Okay. And the volume in the last 24 hours, this is the extent to which trading is happening. And here it shows that 18.877. So we are not yet touched 19. We are 18.877 out of that 21 million, right? Bitcoins have already been mined. This is where you get to know how many Bitcoins are already mined. In Bitcoin only, we know that the upper limit is 21 million, but in others it can be different. Okay. And probably there may be no limit also. That you will have to again study each of them. Enough articles are there. If you read, if you want, you can come to know that. Okay. Tether is one of the most stable one, right? And that's why you see this graph is kind of, here also there was still a big jump, but otherwise the graph is quite steady. So fluctuations are much less, and you can see the volume of transactions, and you will know which is the one that more and more people are using. So these are some facts around cryptocurrency that I wanted you to understand. You have some more doubts or queries, please shoot. This I am done with my presentation. So please ask if you have any queries.